Les invités du Cercle Pierre d'Or, l'excellence immobilière. Ces professionnels construisent l'immobilier d'aujourd'hui et de demain. Rencontre avec des femmes et des hommes remarquables.
Bonjour et bienvenue sur Immoweek.fr. Aujourd'hui, un numéro un peu spécial du Cercle Pierre d'Or reçoit, puisqu'il reçoit deux personnalités tout à fait intéressantes et tout à fait exceptionnelles. Et ce sera un dialogue entre Guillaume Poitrinal, que je ne présente pas, titulaire de 3 Pierres d'Or, et je ne vais pas dire tout son curriculum vitae, et puis un auteur anglo-saxon, Harm Meijer, qui va nous parler des règles, des 20 règles d'or pour faire un investissement immobilier de qualité. Et je pense que ce dialogue, en français et en anglais, traduit, sera tout à fait intéressant pour vous. Et nous nous retrouvons ensuite, bien sûr, demain ou très vite sur immoweek.fr.
Harm Meijer, bonjour. Vous êtes connu pour être un grand analyste du secteur immobilier. Vous avez travaillé chez JP Morgan pendant longtemps et vous avez été classé numéro 1 du secteur. Et aujourd'hui, vous sortez un livre qui s'appelle Real Estate Rules. Et je voulais savoir pourquoi est-ce que vous avez décidé d'écrire ce livre.
Merci, Guillaume. I actually wanted to write a book already since 1998. And when I actually began in property, I thought this is an amazing world, you know, so many colorful people, interesting anecdotes. And I basically collected boxes of full with materials. And then 2022 came and we came in this downturn and I thought, this is the time because listed real estate is overlooked and it is such an interesting area. So I wrote this book. It took a little bit longer, but now it is ready. And I think the timing is right because the area for listed real estate is coming back.
Alors, justement, ce secteur des foncières cotées, il évolue avec le marché en général, mais il évolue aussi indépendamment. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a des acheteurs et des vendeurs d'actions de sociétés des foncières cotées. Quel est votre jugement aujourd'hui sur ce marché des foncières cotées aujourd'hui, à la minute à laquelle on parle?
I mean, the big issue we have today is that listed real estate is just very cheap. If you look at share prices over the last 10 years, the last 20 years, sometimes all-time lows. They are really at all-time lows. Looking at valuation metrics, discounts to NAV, the intrinsic value, are all-time high, whilst NAVs actually came down, you know, by around 30%. So all-time high discounts. Earnings multiples, all-time high. And then obviously also other metrics, you know, pricing per meter, all-time lows. On top of that, we have green lights for property coming. You know, there are really green lights coming for the listed property area because leverage is good, management is good, corporate governance is much and much better. They have access to capital markets, you know, they have access to the bond market, for example. And on top of that, M&A is coming because the area is overlooked, but there is one party who really sees the opportunity today, and that is private equity. So you see more and more M&A coming through.
Si on regarde le marché en général, le territoire des Real Estate Investment Trust, le territoire des foncières cotées, ce sont les États-Unis d'Amérique. Une foncière moyenne aux États-Unis d'Amérique, c'est 5 milliards de capitalisation boursière. Ici, notre foncière moyenne, elle est à 1 milliard en Europe. Qu'est-ce qui explique cette différence aujourd'hui?
That is the question which always comes back. First of all, I think the US was highly preferred last year, but that is actually changing. So that is a positive. The second thing is that America is obviously one country, one culture, one language. And it is one REIT, one tax-efficient system. That is what we not have here. But there are two other things I would actually like to add. That is leverage. A lot of listed property companies had really high leverage over the years, which always brought them in trouble in downturns. You know, if you compare what we do in this book, Unibail versus also Klépierre, you see that Unibail really started to perform weaker when leverage was much higher. And the last point to mention, that is management, because management in Europe is too often focused on every stakeholder and not only on creating value for shareholders, which is fine, But in the end, you have to create value for shareholders to have a higher share price and to grow and issue equity.
Alors, si on prend un peu de recul, ce secteur des foncières cotées par rapport aux autres secteurs disponibles à la bourse, hein, le luxe, l'armement, il y a des tas de choses aujourd'hui à la bourse. Comment est-ce qu'il a évolué? Quelle a été sa performance?
Yeah, well, actually, we have a chart over the last 60 years of REIT performance. The total return has between 9.5 and 10% per year. Okay, so that is really good. If you look at different time periods and you compare property companies versus equities, bonds, then quite often actually listed property outperforms. Now, of course, you need to keep two things in mind. One, real estate is cyclical, so you will have times that it will do better than other times, and you can play with that. And within real estate, there are different kinds of sectors. So even then, when things are changing, there will be within properties winners and there will be losers. So you really have to do your homework.
Alors, si on recule encore un petit peu, beaucoup de gens disent en fait l'immobilier, c'est opaque et c'est illiquide. Et est-ce que l'immobilier coté est une réponse à ça? Est-ce que les foncières cotées, c'est une réponse à ce sujet à propos de l'immobilier?
Yes, I mean, that is definitely true. Real estate is not liquid. We all know that. It is quite easy to buy an asset, but not always to sell an asset. But listed real estate is actually very interesting because with listed real estate, you get these two things actually covered. The corporate governance and transparency in listed real estate is much better compared to years ago. Okay, that is a very crucial point. And of course, it is liquid. So if you need the cash, you can sell and you can move into other opportunities, which is a really important point.
Alors, pourquoi est-ce qu'à ce moment-là, avec toutes ces qualités qu'on vient de rappeler, pourquoi est-ce que le secteur des foncières cotées, pourquoi est-ce que ce secteur de l'immobilier en bourse, pourquoi est-ce que finalement il est un peu en défaveur aujourd'hui et il est un peu oublié des institutionnels? Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé?
That is always the point coming back with listed real estate. The negative point often mentioned is that it is volatile. But it is this, I would say, very strange phenomenon in real estate. Because if tomorrow a very big downturn happens, then obviously the price of your building will actually go down. There is not suddenly a buyer there for 300-400 million. Okay, they will also pause. Actually, there have been several papers out. If you correct for lagging, for smoothing of the data, for leverage, that the correlation between listed real estate and direct property is actually close to 90%. Okay, so that is a big thing. I would say today, if you look at direct property vehicles like funds, most of them, the real estate within the fund is too high in their books. It takes time to correct downwards. I'm not necessarily saying that listed is always it, but I just want to say the positives, because there are also other points like, for example, admin costs, which are very low. You have the REIT status, which means there are no taxes on income and capital gains. You have the IFI not, obviously. So that is a point. And therefore, I think the great combination is a combination with direct property and listed, because listed can give you interesting signals, and sometimes it is just really cheap, like it is today. Today it's really
Cheaper
cheap.
than real estate.
I would say definitely yes. And it is easy. You can just buy it with the click of a mouse. You have access and you can buy all over the world, basically, access to real estate.
So, dans ce livre, Harm Meijer, vous indiquez 20 solutions, 20 petites règles pour investir en immobilier sans risquer de perdre d'argent et en espérant en gagner beaucoup. Donc, quelles sont selon vous, vos règles préférées? Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire, nous donner 2 ou 3 règles qu'il faut suivre si on est un investisseur, je dirais, intelligent, qualifié et inspiré?
It's a difficult choice because there are 20 rules. If I have to name 5, I will probably start the first one, high yield for a reason. That will be my first one. Quite often you see properties with a high yield do not perform best if you take into account capital growth. So really important here is to look at the organic rental growth and / cash flow potential from these assets. And by the way, this is the same for listed property companies. I see so many people buying just a property company because of the dividend yield. And quite often these are the worst performers, because what you get is you have high gearing normally in these companies, weaker assets, and they pay out too much. And when a downturn hits, it all goes downhill. So that will be my first one. My second one will probably be a lesson you have actually told me. And you always say, don't sleep on your assets. And that is, I think, a very good one, because management teams need to continue to add value, and otherwise you become bond-like asset. The third one is actually really happening today. That is what central banks and governments do can be complete game changers. In today's context, you have the tariffs from the USA, for example, or in Germany, the enormous spending power from the government of around a trillion in the market. Those will be game changers. And with listed real estate, by the way, you can quickly act on that. So that will be my third one. My fourth one would be, that is a saying on the capital markets: if in doubt, throw it out. Okay, that means basically if something goes wrong or something is a bit smelly, you don't buy it. And clearly, the more things are smelly in a real estate company, the more people dislike the company, the higher the discount, and you have to be careful not to come on this vicious downwards on this sort of downwards spiral. Okay, so that is if in doubt, throw it out. The last one is to go contrarian, because I did a lot of interviews also with people, and the people who made a lot of money in real estate, they had the guts at one moment to go against the flow, to go contrarian on sound analysis, put the money there and go full in, go contrarian. Probably never true than
On
more
aura
than
compris
today.
que le moment est venu d'être contrariant, en tout cas sur ce marché des foncières cotées. C'est peut-être le moment de le regarder à nouveau. Merci beaucoup, Harm Meijer.